Every holiday, my husband's sister insisted she will come with us until she stood at the train station with her bags, yelling, I already took time off. I turned to my husband and whispered, Did you tell her this trip was for our anniversary? He just looked ashamed. Somewhere around the fifth holiday she inserted herself into, I stopped believing my husband's sister was just excited to spend time with us. My name's Carmen Lewis, 40 years old, school librarian, born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. Married to Lucas Lewis for 12 years. No kids, not by choice, but by a cruel twist of biology. And I thought we were solid. I thought we were the kind of couple who made it through things stronger, not weaker. Then came Madison. Madison was Lucas's younger sister by 7 years. Spoiled, restless, and somehow always at the center of everything. When we first got married, she was sweet enough, popping by for dinner, asking for advice about college. But somewhere along the way, it shifted. Somewhere along the way, Madison stopped seeing us as a separate family and more like an extension of herself. It started subtly. Our first Christmas after moving into our own place, Madison showed up with 3 duffel bags and an attitude. I figured we could all wake up together, she said brightly, ignoring the fact that Lucas and I had been hoping for a quiet morning alone. I bit my tongue and made her hot chocolate. It was just one morning, after all. Then it became a pattern. Every Easter brunch, every 4th of July barbecue, every New Year's Eve dinner, there she was. Showing up. Inserting herself. Acting like we were the supporting cast in the Madison show. And Lucas, well, Lucas was useless about it. He never said no. Never told her maybe it was time she made her own traditions. Never once looked at me when I silently begged him to set a boundary. I told myself it was harmless. Annoying, sure, but harmless. Until our 10th wedding anniversary. We decided to do something special, a long weekend in New York City. Just the 2 of us. Broadway shows, overpriced dinners, hotel sheets we didn't have to wash ourselves. I was giddy. Booked the train tickets. Found a boutique hotel in Midtown. Even splurged on reservations at a rooftop restaurant Lucas had been talking about for years. It felt good, planning something for just us. Like we were finally prioritizing us again. The morning we were set to leave, Lucas was acting weird. Fidgety. Checking his phone every 3 minutes. I chalked it up to nerves. He hated traveling and focused on getting us out the door. We rolled our suitcases into the lobby of the train station, the marble floors gleaming under the bright lights. That's when I heard her. Carmen. Luke. Over here. I turned around slowly. And there she was. Madison. Standing next to a mountain of luggage, grinning like we had planned this whole thing together. I blinked, stunned. She bounced over, pulling Lucas into a hug, then turning to me. I already took the time off work, she chirped. I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing. The blood roared in my ears. I turned to Lucas slowly, my hands trembling just a little. And I whispered, Did you tell her this trip was for our anniversary? Lucas didn't say anything. He just looked ashamed. Didn't even try to deny it. Didn't say a word. Just stared at the floor like a little boy caught stealing cookies. And just like that, in that cold, echoing train station, something inside me shifted. Something cracked. Something that wasn't going to be so easy to glue back together this time. There are moments you can't take back. Moments where you realize, with painful clarity, that something's broken and it might not ever be whole again. For me, it happened at a train station, with my husband looking at his shoes and his sister smiling like she'd just won a prize. My name's Carmen Lewis. I'm 40 years old. Librarian at a public school in Asheville, North Carolina. Married to Lucas Lewis for 12 years. Lucas was steady. Quiet. The guy you thought you could build a life around because he never raised his voice, never forgot to take out the trash, never left you wondering where you stood. And Madison, his younger sister, had been part of the package from the beginning. At first, she was just a little extra. Loud, demanding, restless in that way some people are when they've never had to earn anything. But she was family. And when you marry someone, you marry their family, right? At least, that's what I used to tell myself. It started small, the way these things always do. Our first Christmas as a married couple, Madison called the night before. Hey, I figured I'd just crash with you guys so we can wake up together like old times. Lucas, holding the phone between his ear and shoulder while wrapping my gift, smiled and said, Of course, Mads. I remember standing there, my mouth half open, too stunned to protest. It was Christmas. She was family. What was I supposed to say? So I bit my tongue. Made up the guest bed. Pretended it didn't sting when I woke up on my first married Christmas to the sound of Madison banging around the kitchen instead of sharing a quiet moment with my husband. After that, it was like she had a permanent open invitation. Every Easter. Every 4th of July. Every single New Year's Eve. She would just show up. No warning, no asking, and Lucas would welcome her like it was the most natural thing in the world. "It's just Madison," he'd say, shrugging when I glared at him over the punch bowl or the mashed potatoes. And I told myself to be understanding, to be patient. After all, it was harmless, wasn't it? By the time our 10th wedding anniversary rolled around, I was done being patient. I wanted something for us. Something that didn't involve Madison, or family drama, or anyone but the two of us. I spent weeks planning. Train tickets to New York. A boutique hotel in Midtown. Broadway show tickets. Reservations at a rooftop restaurant Lucas had mentioned wanting to try years ago. I booked it all myself, tucked the printed confirmations into a folder, wrapped it in gold paper, and gave it to Lucas on our anniversary morning. He smiled, kissed my forehead, said, "You're amazing, babe." And for a little while, I believed this trip would be different. The morning we were supposed to leave, Lucas was jumpy. He kept checking his phone, pacing around the living room like he was waiting for bad news. "You okay?" I asked, watching him zip and unzip his duffel bag for the 3rd time. "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Just travel nerves." I brushed it off. Lucas hated traveling. Always had. That's all it was. The train station was packed, a mess of rolling suitcases and hurried announcements echoing over the loudspeakers. I was pulling our tickets up on my phone when I heard someone shouting, "Carmen! Luke! Over here!" I turned, my heart sinking. Madison, waving one arm over her head like she was hailing a cab, standing beside 2 massive suitcases and a bright pink carry-on. Grinning like this was the best surprise she could possibly have pulled off. I blinked, stunned. She bounced toward us, threw her arms around Lucas, then pulled me into a half-hug that smelled like bubblegum perfume. "I already took the time off work," she chirped. "I'm so excited. This is gonna be awesome." I stood frozen. She wasn't joking. She was coming with us. I turned to Lucas, heart pounding. I leaned in close, my voice low and sharp. "Did you tell her this trip was for our anniversary?" He didn't say anything. Didn't even look at me. Just stood there, his shoulders slumped, his face burning red with shame. And right there, in that freezing train station, surrounded by strangers and announcements, and the smell of burnt coffee, something inside me cracked wide open. Not because Madison had shown up, but because Lucas hadn't stopped her. Because, once again, he chose the path of least resistance. And once again, it wasn't me. For a second, I just stood there, watching Madison prattle on about all the fun plans she had, the museums she wanted to visit, the restaurants she had Googled, how she couldn't wait to finally see Times Square at night. Lucas stood stiffly next to me, not saying a word, looking anywhere but at my face. I felt the anger rising in my chest, slow, burning, hot. Not the kind of anger you scream about. The kind that simmers. The kind that makes you realize something deep and awful about the person standing next to you. I took a breath, steadying my voice. "Madison," I said, calm but firm, "this trip was meant to be just Lucas and me. It's our anniversary." She blinked, confused, like I had just spoken a foreign language. "But I already took time off work," she said, her voice rising slightly. "I packed. I booked tours. I thought we were all going together." I turned to Lucas. "Did you tell her?" I asked again, this time louder, sharper. He rubbed the back of his neck, shifting awkwardly. I didn't know how," he mumbled. "You didn't know how," I repeated slowly, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Madison looked between us, her face crumpling into anger. "You're seriously kicking me out," she snapped. "After I planned all this?" I stared at her, stunned. "You planned all this?" I said, laughing once, harsh and humorless. "You mean you planned to crash our anniversary without asking?" Lucas flinched like I had slapped him. Madison crossed her arms, glaring at me like I was the one ruining everything. "I just wanted to spend time with you guys," she said, her voice high and defensive. "And you thought the best time to do that was on a trip meant for the two of us?" I said, my voice low and tight. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You didn't even ask, Madison. You never ask. You just assume." She went red in the face, her jaw tightening. Lucas finally stepped forward, his voice weak. "Maybe we can just all go? Make the best of it." I turned slowly to look at him. Really look at him. And for the first time, I didn't see my husband. I saw a man who would rather disappoint me over and over than face a single uncomfortable conversation with his sister. I felt the hollow ache of that realization settle deep in my gut. "No," I said quietly. Lucas blinked. "No," I repeated, stronger this time. "You two can do whatever you want." "I'm not going," Madison gasped. You're serious? I nodded. I shifted my bag on my shoulder, feeling the weight of it and everything else I had been carrying for years. I'm done. And I meant it. I turned and walked out of the station, my boots clicking sharply against the tile floor, my heart pounding in my ears. I didn't look back. Not at Madison's shocked face. Not at Lucas's ashamed one. I just kept walking. And with every step, I felt lighter. Outside the station, the late morning air felt crisp and biting against my skin. I pulled my coat tighter around me, standing for a moment on the sidewalk, unsure of what to do next. Part of me expected Lucas to come running after me, to call my name, to say he was sorry, to finally pick me over her. But the doors behind me stayed shut. No footsteps, no voice, just the noise of the city moving around me, indifferent. I found a bench a little ways down the block and sat, staring blankly at the people passing by. A mother wrangling 2 toddlers in bright jackets. A man in a suit barking into his phone. A group of college kids laughing about something only they understood. Life going on, while mine felt like it had hit some invisible wall. I pulled out my phone. No texts. No missed calls. I let out a slow breath and leaned back against the bench, feeling a strange mix of heartbreak and relief. Maybe it was better this way. Maybe now, there was no pretending anymore. After about 20 minutes, my phone finally buzzed. Lucas, where are you? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Another buzz. Lucas, please come back. Let's just talk. Talk. Now he wanted to talk. I didn't reply. I tucked the phone into my bag, stood up, and started walking nowhere in particular, just away. Away from the station. Away from Madison. Away from the version of my life that had me constantly putting myself last. Later that night, back home, I sat on the couch in the quiet living room. No TV. No music. Just me and the ticking of the clock over the fireplace. I stared at the framed photos lining the mantel, wedding pictures, family holidays, little snapshots of a life I thought was solid. But now, looking at them, all I could see were the cracks. All the times I smiled and stayed silent. All the times Lucas let someone else's comfort matter more than mine. The front door opened and closed quietly. Lucas stepped into the living room, suitcase in hand, his shoulders sagging. He looked wrecked, hair messy, dark circles under his eyes. For a second, he just stood there, like he didn't know how to move forward. I'm sorry, he said finally, voice rough. I said nothing. He dropped the suitcase by the door and walked over, hands stuffed deep in his pockets. I should have told her, he said, staring at the carpet. I should have stood up for you. I waited, letting the silence stretch long enough that he shifted uncomfortably. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, he said. And you didn't mind hurting mine? I asked, my voice calm but sharp. He winced. I didn't think it would turn into this. It always does, I said quietly. He sank into the armchair across from me, rubbing his face with both hands. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. I studied him, really looked at him. At the man who loved peace more than he loved fighting for me. At the man who was sorry, but maybe only because he got caught between 2 people who finally said enough. I don't know if you can, I said honestly. His head snapped up. You mean that? I nodded. I can't keep doing this, Lucas, I said, my voice steady. I can't keep being the one who compromises while you stay comfortable. He opened his mouth, but I shook my head. I need someone who chooses me, I said. Not when it's easy. Not when it won't upset anyone. Always. He sat back heavily in the chair, his face pale. I love you, he said helplessly. I smiled sadly. Sometimes love isn't enough. The room felt heavy after I said it. Lucas stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like he was trying to find the right words and kept losing them before they ever made it out. I can change, he said finally, voice low. I'll talk to her. I'll set boundaries. You should have done that years ago, I said quietly. He flinched. I wanted to feel satisfied, wanted to feel like I was finally winning this argument we had never really allowed ourselves to have. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired in a way that didn't come from lack of sleep or one bad day. The kind of tired that settled into your bones after years of fighting a war no one else seemed to notice. Lucas stood up, started pacing the living room in short, frantic lines. I'll tell her, he said. I'll make her understand. We can still go on the trip. Rebook it. Just us. He looked at me, his eyes wide and desperate. Please, Carmen. And for a second, just a second, I almost softened. Almost gave in to the familiar pull of fixing things, of smoothing it over, of making it okay so neither of us had to sit in the uncomfortable mess. But then I thought about Madison at the station, her voice shrill and entitled, yelling about how she took time off without once thinking to ask if she was wanted. I thought about Lucas, standing there silent, letting me twist in the wind. And I thought about all the times before that, the holidays, the birthdays, the little moments where I was supposed to just be grateful anyone wanted to be around us at all. No, not this time. I'm not going anywhere, Lucas, I said softly. He stopped pacing, his face crumpling in confusion. You mean, not tonight? I shook my head slowly. I mean, I'm not going anywhere with you anymore. His whole body sagged like I'd punched the air out of him. Carmen, don't. I have to, I interrupted, my voice breaking a little. Because if I don't now, I'll keep making excuses. For you. For her. For everyone. And I'll wake up one day and realize I gave up every piece of myself just to keep the peace. He swallowed hard, blinking fast. But we're good together, he said, almost begging. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. We were, I said. When it was just us. When you saw me. When you fought for me. He took a step toward me, but I held up a hand. I can't live a life where I'm always second. Not to your sister. Not to your fear of confrontation. Not to anything. He stood there, helpless, while I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. I paused, my hand on the handle, and looked back one last time. He looked small. Not the man I fell in love with. Just a boy who never learned how to choose. I left the house that night with nothing but my purse and the clarity that had taken me 10 years to find. I stayed with Melanie, my best friend since college, who barely said a word when she opened the door and saw my face. Just pulled me into a hug and let me cry until my lungs hurt. The next few days were a blur. Lucas texted, called, left voicemails. Each one a little more desperate than the last. I listened to exactly one. Lucas, voicemail, I love you. Please don't throw away everything we have. Please. But he still didn't say what needed to be said. He didn't say he finally understood. Only that he wanted things back the way they were. Comfortable. Easy. For him. Melanie and I sat on her tiny balcony one night, sharing a cheap bottle of wine, watching the lights of Asheville flicker in the distance. You're doing the right thing, she said softly, bumping her shoulder against mine. I nodded, staring out at the skyline. I just thought it would hurt more, I said. She laughed quietly. That's because you already mourned it, Carmen. You've been mourning it for years. And she was right. I just hadn't let myself admit it until now. About a week later, I filed for divorce. It wasn't some dramatic courtroom scene. No shouting. No tears. Just paperwork, signatures, and a simple, quiet ending. Lucas didn't contest it. Maybe he knew he couldn't fight for something he'd never truly protected in the first place. I moved into a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, creaky floors, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every painting on the walls, every choice. No compromises. No silent sacrifices. Just me, building a life on my own terms. I heard through a mutual friend that Madison wasn't taking it well. Apparently, she blamed me. Told anyone who'd listen that I couldn't handle family, that I was selfish for expecting a man to put his marriage before his sister. Lucas didn't defend me. Of course he didn't. But it didn't matter anymore. Their opinions didn't live in my house. Their voices didn't follow me into my new bed at night. Their guilt didn't weigh down my mornings anymore. I had left all of that behind. Months later, I ran into Lucas. It was at the grocery store, near the checkout lanes, that awkward no man's land where you can't pretend you didn't see someone. He looked older, tired. He pushed a half-empty cart, staring down at the floor like it might open up and swallow him whole. I almost walked past him, almost pretended he was just another stranger in a world full of them. But I caught his eye for a second, just long enough to see the regret there. Deep. Heavy. He opened his mouth, maybe to say something, maybe to apologize, maybe to beg. I just smiled, small, calm, and shook my head once. No, not today. Not ever again. And then I turned and walked out of the store, the sun warm on my face, the world wide open in front of me. Later that evening, I sat on my tiny balcony with a cup of tea, the city humming softly around me. I thought about everything I had left behind. And everything I had finally found. Peace. Freedom. The quiet, fierce certainty that I didn't need anyone's permission to live the life I deserved. Madison and Lucas could keep each other. They could keep their warped version of family. I had chosen myself. And that, I realized, was the sweetest kind of revenge. Living well. Living free. Without ever looking back.